In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the right-hand side engine mount on this Nissan Altima. It supports your engine on the passenger side, so let's get started. This engine cover is held on with 3 bolts, and you'll need a T30 Torx to remove all 3 of them. With all 3 removed, you can pull the cover off. In the way of our engine mount is this coolant expansion tank, which is held on with a 10mm bolt right next to the fender. Move this hose aside and remove this bolt. Once you do that, you can pull this tank out of the way. You don't have to disconnect the hose, you just have to move this so you can make space. Next, we have to support the engine from underneath. I'm going right on the engine oil pan, and I have a piece of wood on my jack. That way it doesn't potentially puncture the oil pan. I'm also going to go right on the side of it where it's curving up. That's where it's the strongest. And you don't need to put a lot of pressure on it anyway. You just have to put a little bit of pressure, just about 1/4 of a pump once it touches on the jack should be enough. You just need to support it at this height while you unbolt the engine mount. Next, use a 16mm socket and unbolt this bracket from the engine and the engine mount. There's a mounting nut right between these 2 lines that has to be removed as well. That's an 18mm. Remove this. Set that aside. There are now 3 16mm bolts that hold this mount onto the body of the vehicle. One here, and one back there. They're all a little tricky to get to. If you have a swivel socket, I recommend using that. All right, so this bolt won't come out because it's hitting this mount right here. Let's take out the one in front. Should be able to remove this one. They are fairly long bolts. And finally this one up here. This one should be a short one. Yep, let's create some extra clearance by removing this mount right here. Use an 18mm socket, remove this bolt. And then another 18mm right up here. In order to get access to removing this bolt completely, we have to create space by removing this bracket. Now there are 2 bolts right here, but if you lift up the cowl, which should actually have some push clips, which are missing for me, there's a couple 10mm bolts underneath that we're going to have to get to. 13mm socket on these. Now the 2 10mm bolts, if you lift up the cowl, are right in here that you can reach with a wrench or a ratchet. There's one. And there's a second. At the back, there are 2 10mm mounting nuts holding on this power steering line. Let's remove both of those so we can move that bracket around, of course, with the lines. Lift this up and off the studs. There we go. Now use an 18mm wrench to remove this mounting bolt, and I know what you're thinking, this is in the way. However, I have a trick around that. You don't have to remove all of this and the cowl. I'm just going to break it free first. Once it's loose enough, you should be able to unthread it by hand. All right, so as you can see, you can angle it quite a bit. And if you just pull up on this bracket here, you can help this out with a pry bar. Boom, comes right out. Now that's out. Now you can pull this engine mount out. Okay. Set this aside. Right down here, there's actually a bracket with a 10mm mounting nut that you can remove to free up this AC line a little bit. Okay, now you can remove this bolt that we couldn't get to before. Let's remove this hose off of these retainers. This is the overflow hose that leads to the radiator. And let's pop this insulation off. 2 push clips right here. Set it aside. This will show us the bracket where the power steering pump is mounted. There's a bolt here, and then there's another mounting nut straight down here. If we unbolt these, it should allow us to pivot this a little bit more. Pushing this insulation aside, there's a mounting bolt right here, 13 millimeter, a mounting nut right down there, also 13 millimeter, and then another one in the front. Make sure you get that washer out as well. It does come off the bolt. This one's kind of hard to reach. You have to push the return hose out of the way. All of these are hard to see also. Now this can move. You don't have to unplug it. You just need a little bit more movement out of it. Now grab this mount, push the lines out of the way, and move everything around until you find the right position that this wants to be in to come out. There it is. Take the new mount and slide it down the same way the old one came out. Perfect. Now, since we have clear access to all of the mounting holes, let's drop in all the bolts. Make sure they actually start in. Start them all in by hand. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the two longer ones that go down on the frame rail because they don't really have an adjustment to them. This hole up here on this tab that sticks up is a little bit larger than the bolt on purpose so that you can move this around as needed. So let's tighten those bottom two first, and then this one, all three get torqued to 30 foot-pounds in the end. Once again, 30 foot-pounds on all three of these. Now let's remount the power steering pump. Start in all the hardware by hand to make sure it doesn't cross-thread. Torque these to 20 foot-pounds. Put this all back. Let's get this line mounted back on its bracket. Get the two mounting nuts back on. Snug these up. Down by this AC line bracket, make sure you slide that back over and put on the mounting nut. Tighten this back up. Make sure that's nice and snug. Let's reinstall this mount. Slide it into its bracket. And get this bolt through. Start the bolt into its threads by hand and we'll bottom this out. Okay, that's bottomed out completely. Let's tighten it up. The torque on this bolt is 63 foot-pounds, and I can't torque it with a torque wrench just because of its location, but with a wrench I'm going to make it nice and tight by hand. Make sure that's going to hold on to this mount properly. That is plenty tight right there. I gave it about a quarter turn after it bottomed out and started pinching down on this bracket, so that should be plenty tight. When it comes to putting in this bolt on the side, I'm going to slide it through the mount. However, the engine is not lined up. We'll have to push on the engine to get this to line up properly with the threads on this bracket. Looks like the engine is too high up, so I'm going to lower it a little. And now push and try again. All right, finally found the right position for this to line up. You either have to go up or down with the engine. Once it lines up, you want to make sure it threads in smoothly. This is an aluminum bracket, and you don't want to cross-thread that. It is very easy to do so. Once you're sure that this is started, put some pressure on the engine and tighten the bolt. "63 foot-pounds on this one as well. That's nice and tight. Let's get these two bolts reinstalled. Tighten these two to 30 foot-pounds. Reinstall the two 10mm bolts underneath the cowl. And snug those up. Put any push clips back on the cowl that you've removed. Reinstall this bracket at the top. You might need to raise the engine at this point to get this to line up, so let's do that. Not too much though. There we go. Drop in all the bolts. The long one goes in the front. The mounting nut goes on the stud on the mount that we just replaced. And the other three are the same. Try to get this as evenly leveled as possible and of course centered. These do have a little bit of an adjustment, but of course you want to make sure that everything is centered as it should be. Let's tighten this up. I'm going to start with this center one. Tighten the mounting nut to 76 foot-pounds. And these four bolts to 37 foot-pounds. Release your engine support and reinstall the coolant expansion tank right here with this 10mm bolt. Tighten this up. Careful when you tighten it, you don't want to break the tab on the coolant tank, so just make it nice and snug. If you're doing this by hand, at most 1/8 of a turn after it bottoms out should be plenty. Reinstall the engine cover. Make sure it's lined up with all the bolt holes. And reinstall your bolts and snug them up. And there you have it, job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.